Paul Finkelstein, a full marathon runner, serial entrepreneur. He shares the story of the day he fainted while he was driving and the experience of wearing a heart monitor before the marathon. He is connecting to us from Florida, and his speech title is Overcoming Great Odds. Paul Finkelstein.
Aloha, fellow Earthlings. It's great to be here. This is an amazing opportunity for me to reach out down to Earth and share with all of my friends down there. If you are from Florida or New York or Pennsylvania or anywhere in the United States or around the world, you are going to want to sit back and hear and enjoy. I'm going to take you back just a little bit so you can see where I got my training from, my marathon interest in training and why I got passionate about that. At age 18, this normal kid named Paul Finkelstein, he loved soccer. He loved running around the soccer field. He loved tennis. Oh, by the way, all those tennis players out there, you want to pay attention to. Well, something happened to me at graduation day at the end of high school. The day after graduation, everybody went to party. The next day, I decided, well, it wasn't really my decision. My parents, myself, and my scoliosis doctor decided that a 2, 6, 15, 16-degree curve was not okay to just live out life. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to make too much eye contact. And now you're sporting my COVID-19 hairdo, as you can see. So because of that, I had to go the next day to scoliosis surgery, where they opened up my back, from the back, of course. And they took out the 2 bottom ribs. That was comforting. Well, they put me asleep, and I just had a nice nap for several long hours. After that was all done, I found out they took out my 2 bottom ribs, and they put in a steel rod the size of one of those drumsticks. If anybody here plays drums, the size of your drumstick was the size of the steel rod that they put right in the middle from my neck all the way down to my waist. Now let's fast forward just a little tiny drop. Right after a 2-week stay at the hospital, I was recuperating. I had a respiratory, I think that's the right word, therapist at my home, and my parents got cable for Paul at that time. That's the first time I got cable. I mean, try dragging a child or anybody or an adult off of an iPhone, and I got tired of watching cable. I made that respiratory therapist walk with me out the door, down the driveway, down the street to the next town over. Probably was a 10, 13-mile walk. So that was probably the hint at how I got started in marathons. Let's continue on with the story. I was looking at a Facebook not a Facebook post, before Facebook, a little social media site called ryze.com. Not a lot of traffic going on there now, but it still exists. I saw a guy on his profile around 2004, and he had this picture, a huge picture. It took up almost his whole profile of him going across the finish line. And I could see why you'd want to do that, because if you're running 26.2 miles, you're going to want to put up a huge picture on your profile too. And I said, I want to do that. Does anybody here want to do that? I mean, raise your hand, and I can't see it, but you can see it right back at yourself and go, wow, if you want to do it, then go for it. And I'll tell you exactly how you can overcome any odds, anything so great as possible that you want to overcome. I have the solutions for you. Hey, let's take a little quickie break in the middle of my speech. I've been reading this book, Think and Grow Rich. Matter of fact, I actually got multiple copies of it. Why would I buy multiple copies of this Think and Grow Rich? Because after I read it, I underline every single word while I'm reading it. And then I have a fresh book, and I could read it again. And in that book, they actually tell you about this thing called definite purpose. And I just happened to be picking up this book over the last couple of weeks during our COVID-19. You need something to do for self-development so you come out stronger at the other end of this pandemic. And in this book, in chapter 2, he talks about definite purpose. He talks about desire, burning desire so deep. And that, I think, is what I had when I had the scoliosis surgery. I zipped out, wanted to go walking and running to the next town, dragging my respiratory therapist with me. In 2005, I was driving my father-in-law to the doctor, or I was driving to his house to drive him to the doctor. And I never quite made it there. Here's my other overcoming thing, something that I overcome. In the middle of the highway, I fainted, driving 75 miles an hour, going through the toll booth, and then driving a little bit more at high speeds. Next thing I know, I'm waking up, and I look behind me in this giant lamppost, the kind that light up highways. It was a $2,000 bill on Allstate. Premium was nothing, but I mean, I'm glad that I didn't hit anybody. I'm glad that I'm okay. The airbag went off. I woke up and there was these Hispanic workers that came off their tractors and their lawn mowers, and they're all knocking on my windshield. Mister, are you okay? And that experience really freaked me out just a little bit. I'm like, what happened? I didn't have a history of this. I discovered what syncope is. My wife said, you're not training for that marathon anymore. That's coming up in 2 or 3 months. What are you going to do? Well, went to the doctor, went to the emergency room, checked everything out. And then I said, I'm going to figure out how I'm going to overcome this. The doctor gave me a Holter monitor about half the size of my phone, hooked up a wire like this, attached it to my heart like you're getting an EKG at a doctor's office. He thought I was just going to have breakfast, lunch, dinner, take a nap, do that for a week, analyze it. Nope, I'm going to get my money's worth out of this Holter monitor. I took it to the beach, took my feet off, took my socks off, my shoes, and I ran barefoot on the beach 5 miles this way and 5 miles this way, and really got to see if I could hear my Holter monitor. It would have been like beep, 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 so I can get really my money's worth out of this. Like you want to get your money worth out of a doctor, out of any professional, a lawyer, accountant, you want your money's worth. The doctor said it's okay. You could continue training for a marathon. Thank goodness he saw heart rate was good, but just what's this fainting thing? Let's control that. Got through that. But in the beginning of all this training, I want to talk more about this definite purpose, because Paul was a shy kid. Why did he take up running? I don't even know. I wanted to mention this a little bit because you mentioned in the title of my speech here, or story, that it is about marathon training, but there's so much more to it than marathon training that got me ready to running a marathon. Matter of fact, I wish somebody told me about that little known organization that's huge in 143 countries. You know what I'm talking about. It's called Toastmasters. And I wish someone told me about it back when I was in high school. I wish someone recognized it and someone gave me that key 5-minute speech with impact, a question, something to get my attention, because most speeches do have that question in the beginning. So I would have listened. But no, they probably didn't give me the impact speech. They probably didn't have the ample training. But fast forward a little bit further along Paul's journey. In college, my parents made me take a Dale Carnegie course. There were 50 adults in it from Rochester, New York at Kodak Corporation. I was completely shy, out of my element. But I won a prize. I won a pen in that class. And they said this exciting training to get someone. If you're shy and you're listening to this as part of Paul's marathon training, it's just this definite purpose, everything. I'll tie this all in somehow. They said, if you say this one exercise at the very last week of that Dale Carnegie training, they took a newspaper and put it in my hand, and they had me slapping it on top of a desktop. You know why people can't get things done? I'll tell you why people can't get things done. Because they don't have the ability to get things done, or something like that. And in 50 people, I had so much emotion, so much anger, and I was wadding that newspaper on top of that desk, and it really brought out all this energy, and I suddenly realized that I was in front of 50 people. I didn't even realize it because I wasn't so much involved in the action of my speech by swatting a newspaper on the desk in front of the class. Maybe all these were part of the little nuggets along the journey of Paul and the education along the journey of Paul of how to train for a marathon so I could finish that marathon and not give up. And how not give up? I had these things that were in this book, Think and Grow Rich, on chapter 2, that talks about burning desire, talks about definite purpose. And that definite purpose was so critical in how I was able to just overcome everything, including COVID-19. We need definite purpose to accomplish any goal, period. That's how we accomplish everything, overcome everything.